Hey guys, welcome to BST 𝑑𝒂𝒍𝒅𝒂. Today we've got Diffusive Danger featuring our Rapid Strike Cloyster from Fusion Strike with the Aqua Split attack doing 60 damage to our opponent's active plus 30 more to any two of their bench. We also get to add even more damage with our Throwing Coach ability using Passimian, also a Rapid Strike Pokemon from Chilling Reign if I'm not mistaken. So Passimian allows you to do 30 more damage to your opponent's bench V Pokemons with your Rapid Strike Pokemon's attacks, and if you are playing your Aqua Split with your Passimian in play, if you have Passimian on your bench while attacking with your Cloyster, you are hitting 60 damage to two of their bench V Pokemon. So we actually have to choose V Pokemons though. If we are choosing a non-V cards like Skwovet or an EX, we're only hitting 30 damage with our Aqua Split for the bench damage. So we have to be careful with this attack. We may not be able to hit as much bench snipe, but we are actually doing a lot of damage, spread damage at that with this card constantly, and we actually get to play Rapid Strike Energy, obviously substituting for the double water energy since we are required to attach one water and one colorless. We also have 3 Raihan for us to play our Zeraora as well late game. So we have one copy of this card allowing us to do Cross Fist for 100 damage in the active plus 160 more onto their bench if we attack with one of our other Rapid Strike Pokemon on our previous turn. So we actually get that extra damage, extra snipe using our Zeraora's effect of attack. We also have extra snipe using our Pump Shot ability with Radiant Blastoise as well. We're playing this Radiant Pokemon for extra damage counter placement, discarding a water energy from our hand, allowing us to place 2 more damage counters onto their bench Pokemon every single turn if we have that water energy in our hand to discard. If we don't have a basic water in our hand to discard, we're not unfortunately able to place extra damage counters, get extra damage in the game using our Radiant ability, so we have to watch out for that. We also have our draw support, Bibarel with Skwovet. Skwovet is there to help us arrange the deck in a way that we don't get stuck with our VIP in our hand while drawing cards with Bibarel. We also have our Ultra Ball to get our evolutions, Irida to evolve our Cloyster, Arven to get our Panic Mask. So the main combo for this deck is obviously our Cloyster spreading damage with Aqua Split, and also Zeraora basically finishing off the Pokemon or even keeping them at low HP so that we actually get to prevent them from doing any damage to our Pokemon with Panic Mask attached. So Panic Mask allows you to prevent all damage done to this Pokemon if you have this tool card attached to it, and also if your opponent's active Pokemon has 40 or less HP remaining, they are not able to do any damage to your Pokemon. So that's actually a very cool effect for a tool card, and we only are playing one copy for this deck though. If we have Super Rod for the next set, we actually could play one less Shellder and one less Cloyster for a Super Rod and also an extra Panic Mask. That would be ideal. That would be the ideal case, but for now, we'll have to substitute a Rod for 4 copies of our Cloyster until Paldea Evolves comes out. So obviously for every bench snipe deck, we have to watch out for Manaphy, and if they are playing it, if they have it on their bench, we have our Toy Catcher with Cologne to get past the ability, helping us snipe the bench while knocking out the active Manaphy after doing the snipe on it with our Radiant Blastoise. So we can Pump Shot, discard a water energy from our hand to place 2 damage counters on the Manaphy, reducing it down to 50 HP, allowing us to play our Irida to get Toy Catcher into our hand if we already can draw out the Canceling Cologne. Obviously draw cards with your Bibarel before actually deciding what cards to search for with your Arven or Irida. You can search for either of the item cards into our hand in a single turn right after sniping with our Blastoise. So we do need the water energy in our hand. We may need to wait a few turns before we can actually knock out the Manaphy, but we have also our boss as well. If we don't get the Toy Catcher, if we don't get to pull off the item with our Blastoise, we can actually use boss to pull out the Manaphy and cancel its ability with Cologne, using Bibarel to draw these 2 cards into our hand. Next, with our Miriam to help us shuffle back our Pokemon into the deck while also drawing 3 cards. For the switch, we are playing 2 Escape Rope with 1 Tower of Waters. We also have 1 Energy Loto to help us dig out for our Rapid Strike energy so that we actually get to attack with a single energy using our Aqua Split, or even Raihan for the double. We can search for it using our Raihan as well, so that we actually get to attack with Cross Fist, doing a surprise bench snipe right after benching our Zeraora and doing a switch or Escape Rope, or retreating with our Tower of Waters. For the setup, we have our regular items, 4 VIP Pass, 4 Nest Ball, 4 Ultra Ball to get our evolutions, 1 Irida and 1 Arven to search for any items including our balls. We have 1 Great Ball for the evolution as well, and 2 Hisuian Heavy Ball to search for any basics from the prize. Obviously, since we are playing only 1 copy of Passimian, 1 Zeraora and also 1 Radiant Blastoise. So that's all for the deck list. Let's go for some gameplay and see how well this deck works. Okay, let's go for our first game versus Miraidon EX. We have our Cloyster for the bench snipe, doing 60 damage to the active and splitting 30 onto any two of our opponent's bench. If they are playing Ileki, we actually get to do 60 damage onto the VMAX. We should be hitting like a Raikou or Raichu on a bench though. If they are playing Raichu or Magnezone, we need the Manaphy. We also need Passimian obviously, but if we hit a V Pokemon on the bench, we got extra 30 damage in the game using our throwing coach Rapid Strike Passimian. And we even have our Pump Shot with Blastoise to hit for extra damage counters onto the bench every single turn. We are not playing that many Water Energy though, just because Zeraora requires a Lightning, and Rapid Strike Energy doesn't actually satisfy the Lightning cost for Zeraora to do Cross Fist. So we kind of need our Lightning basic or at least Spiral Energy, and Spiral doesn't actually work with Blastoise's ability. That's the reason with our basic Lightning, just because Raihan also doesn't work for special energies. So we initially had one energy search for this deck. Eventually I decided just to remove it and keep the Energy Loto, just because Rapid Strike Energy is a lot more useful, and we can quite easily just at late game play our Zera with our Raihan. Since we are playing 3 copies of Raihan, we can quite easily draw out the Lightning Energy by the time we have 3 or 4 Cloysters in the discard pile. After using Aqua Split multiple times in a row, we would be able to pull off our Zera using our Raihan for the Lightning cost, and also attaching a Rapid Strike from our hand by searching for it with the Raihan. You have to be careful though, because Zeraora is quite squishy, so if you bench it too early, they can quite easily do a boss, knock it out before you actually get to play your Cross Fist. Make sure you're aware of that. If you can play a surprise Cross Fist, if you can bench it at the last minute and then do an Escape Rope, that would be ideal, because that gives you a surprise snipe for big damage onto the bench. After collecting bit by bit with your Aqua Split, you may be able to knock out a VMAX even with your Cross Fist for 190 damage on the bench with your throwing coach as well. So that's actually a big deal. That's the reason we have our Cologne, so many Colognes and Toy Catcher in this deck. We're only doing one Toy Catcher now, but we do have that one boss to basically substitute for it. If we have, for example, a boss in our hand, we can play it first and then draw out with Bibarel the Cologne for us to be able to, snipe the bench while having the Manaphy in the active. It's definitely easier for us to get like Irida or Arven to search for the Toy Catcher and then dig for if we have even like one item in our hand, for example a Cologne, as you saw right now in our hand is a Cologne and Irida, so we can quite easily do a snipe with the Blastoise. If they're playing, for example, a Mary Fluffy for this deck, we can quite easily do Pump Shot, discarded water from our hand to basically reduce the Mary down to 40 HP on a bench, and we can actually play Irida to do a Toy Catcher on the Mary or Manaphy. If they have a Manaphy on the bench right now, we could easily do it. Well, they just knocked out our Blastoise, but you get the point. If we have the Blastoise on the bench this turn, unfortunately we don't have it. If we have it, we actually get to play Cologne and Irida to search for the Toy Catcher to basically deal with the Water Veil for one turn. Not only are we able to knock out a Manaphy with our Aqua Split in the active spot after sniping it on the bench with our Blastoise, we can also basically shut off his ability for one turn, which is crucial just because we only need it for one turn. And then after that, if they don't play Clara or Miriam to retrieve the Manaphy, to recycle the Manaphy and basically re-bench it on the next turn, if they do that, it would be quite difficult. We would need Lost City to deal with that, but we're hoping they don't revive the Manaphy after we do the knockout. Just because this is primarily a bench snipe deck, we are hitting extra damage only onto their bench Pokemon. If we can't do the extra damage on the bench, this deck would lose a lot of value. We would have to rely on Blastoise to do Torrential Cannon, and that's not good because we don't have many ways to revive our Blastoise, and it's not really doing that much damage anyways, 170 damage. So we kind of have to rely on his ability as well for the extra snipe, and Passimian for us to hit extra damage. Cloyster isn't really doing as much damage as you would like, but eventually though, after your 3rd or 4th strike, you could actually put on your Panic Mask for you to basically deny them, to prevent all damage done to your Cloyster with that tool card attached by all of your opponent's attackers. If they have 3 attackers, 2 on the bench that have damage counters on it, If all of them are so heavily damaged that they have 40 or less HP remaining, then they can't actually do any damage at all onto your Cloyster with that tool card attached. We eventually just reduced down to 1 copy though. Now we have only 1 copy of the Panic Mask, unfortunately, for this list, just because we are not actually allowed to play Rod yet. If we have the Rod though, I would actually cut down to 3 copies of the Cloyster. 3-3 line allows us to play 1 Rod to replace for the 4th copy, and then we actually get to replace the Shellder for another copy of our tool card. So 2 Panic Mask allows you to basically bench your Zera early as well. If you bench your Zera after your 4th strike, you could potentially deny your opponent from doing any damage at all onto your Zera. After doing a boss with your Raikou, they are not doing any damage. They need to prepare another attacker. They need to use another generator to charge up the 4th attacker to be able to knock out your Zera after doing the boss. It's still quite easy for Miraidon though, just because they got the generator. If they play it right, if they use it at the last minute, because if you play your Aqua Split early, they could actually choose to play the item later on in the game. If they choose to play it late, they can choose whichever Pokemon to charge it onto, and probably they would be, attaching energies onto the Pokemon with full HP and attacking with that Pokemon instead of the one that is heavily damaged. So obviously Panic Mask isn't really that functional at the moment, but we are trying to make the best of it using our Rapid Strike box, Cloyster to do Aqua Split, and Zeraora to finish off that Pokemon or even lower down their HP so much that they can't actually do any damage at all onto our Pokemons unless if they do a Lost Vacuum. So Panic Mask is not perfect. As we all know, there are quite a lot of ways to deal with tool cards. They can quite easily do a tool jammer or even Lost Vacuum to remove that tool from play, and then we are totally vulnerable. They can also do a boss on the Bibarel, knockout for the extra prize. If they have, for example, 2 prize remaining, they can target our Passimian Bibarel with a boss or Escape Rope, and then we're done. So if you play Panic Mask, you better be attaching at least 1 onto your bench in addition to the active, just to at least counter Escape Rope, right? If they can draw extra prizes with the boss, they may not have enough boss to win the game. If they do research in their deck, they may discard a couple bosses early game, and that means they may not be able to do enough boss to finish off the prizes by drawing the remaining 2 or 3 prizes after that. So we could actually save ourselves against Escape Rope though if we have, for example, Panic Mask attached to both our active and also any one of our bench Pokemon. That's the reason I say that's why I prefer having at least 2 copies of Panic Mask in any list. In any deck that plays that tool card, you need to have at least 2 copies. We should really be getting back to the game. So let's do Aqua Split onto the Miraidon, because if we don't target a Miraidon, okay, this is our 2nd strike, I think. So by the 3rd strike, I eventually realized that we better be hitting the Miraidon at some point in the game, because otherwise we may not have enough for us to finish it off late game. I don't think we can kill the Ilaki that easily. If we hit it a 3rd time though, we could quite easily just knock out the Ilaki on the bench with our Passimian, because we are doing 190 damage with, using Crossfist late game. So I think we made a mistake on the next turn, because we actually deviated from course. We somehow just targeted the Miraidon instead of consistently hitting the VMAX on the bench, because we didn't realize that we got the knockout on the basic Ilaki, because they didn't evolve the 2nd VMAX. It's quite bizarre for Miraidon not to do that. So I don't know, I suppose we just got lucky for this game. So we got double V knockout on the next turn, so that means we just need 2 remaining prizes to win the game. We got 1 Raihan and 1 Rapid Strike Energy. We need the Cloyster, and we got no Skwovet, unfortunately, on the bench. So we somehow have to play the Raihan, and possibly get the Ultra Ball. Because we got the Beach card, we actually get to retreat the Passimian. That's the reason I put it into the active. We could actually play our... we could attack with Passimian to do 50 damage onto the Ilaki VMAX as well. But I feel like since they have not evolved the basic Lucky, we should definitely be doing Aqua Split right now while we can to collect 4 prizes in a row. But we could actually think about doing... well, we have no more Cloyster though. So for this game, we actually are playing only 3 copies of the Cloyster. I forgot to mention, we eventually decided to play 4 copies. At some point, I actually added a Zoroark as well. So 3 Bibarel, 2 Bidoof, 3 Shellder and Cloyster, with 1 Zoroark to basically transform into either Bibarel if they do a boss on it, or into the Cloyster is actually quite consistent. But if you play the Zoroark though, for some reason they keep giving you the Zora early. So I kind of prefer playing 4 copies of the Cloyster if I have to. Since we have no rod for standard right now. But if I'm just waiting for the rod, the minute rod comes in, I'm gonna play it so often, I'm gonna just add so many rods in my deck to replace, to substitute for Miriam, Clara. I mean, those are supporter cards, and you don't really get to play supporter just to retrieve if you need to do a boss, right? If you need to play boss, Serena, or power supporter cards like Research, if you need to draw a lot of cards into your hand, if you need Raihan as well to get the extra energy, or Giovanni, there's going to be a Giovanni's Charisma for the next set as well, allowing you to attach extra energy from your hand onto your Pokemon while also removing an energy from your opponent's active by putting it back into their hand. So it's giving you a lot of energy advantage with that 1 supporter card. And that could actually be the supporter that you need to play instead of a simple retrieval, right? If you need to retrieve Pokemon, you could easily just play Rescue Carrier Rod to just shuffle them back instead of having to do a Miriam only to shuffle back Pokemons, which is quite silly. I used to play Team Yell's Cheer, I think. Team Yell's Cheer allows you to shuffle back 3 in any combination of your Pokemon and supporter cards, which is actually pretty useful because instead of having to, instead of allowing you to shuffle up to 5 in any up to 5 Pokemons from your discard pile back into the deck and drawing 3 cards with Miriam, we actually get to choose either to shuffle back Pokemon or supporters. We're obviously shuffling less copies, but the option to choose which supporter to shuffle back and which Pokemon is actually a big deal. You could shuffle back your boss, for example, playing a Bibarel deck. You kind of need to discard a lot of cards if you don't have Skwovet. If you don't have the bench spot for Skwovet, for example, if you need Manaphy, if you need Inteleon VMAX, if you need to play like EX abilities, speed ups, you can't afford to play that many bench supports, and that means Skwovet is out of the question, and you kind of need a lot of Ultra Balls, and it's kind of like Mew VMAX. If you need to run through your hand, if you need to keep discarding your boss, if you need to discard so many supporters just to draw the right cards into your hand, to play the right cards at the right time, you kind of need ways to shuffle back those cards and make the deck, run more smoothly. And in order to make it more consistent, in order to make it more fluid, Team Yell's Cheer actually does do the trick. So they actually did a boss on the Manaphy for the last turn, which is kind of weird. I think they were just giving us the win. They know they're not doing any damage with the Raikou, but they got the Beach Core though, and enough energies on the Miraidon to basically finish off the Cloyster in the active, even with that tool card attached, because Miraidon has more than enough HP for them to do damage onto the Cloyster. That's the bad thing about the mask, is that you kind of need to snipe all of their Pokemon, and since Miraidon can charge up any attacker, they got so many attackers, so many lightning Pokemons on the bench for them to play the generator onto. They can quite easily attack with anything. If they play a Gardevoir as well, they can choose which Pokemon to attach energies. It's kind of insane. Meta deck is just crazy right now. If they play a Lost Box though, we could kind of snipe and reduce all Pokemons in play potentially down to 40 by the time we did our Aqua Split for the 3rd or 4th time, unless if they play enough switch cards. They can't possibly heal that much damage though, could they? Because if they heal 40, we got our Blastoise to basically top off for another 2 damage counters. They only got 4 copies to spare as well. I don't think they can heal that many times. So we are spreading a lot of damage onto a 1 price deck. If they play a 1 price, I feel like we're good. I feel like the Panic Mask would have a lot more value against a 1 price deck than it would have against a regular, V-Star or EX deck. If they play like a V-Star or EX though, with like only 2 or 3 primary attackers, if they do Entei, Arcanine EX for example, if they have only 3 primary attackers in play, and no other Pokemon that gets to attack, if they can actually choose to play Magma Basin onto the Charizard though. If they attack with Armor Rouge as well, I don't think it would be enough for them to knock out the Cloyster with one hit. But they need to kind of play Magma Basin onto the Armor Rouge, and it needs 3 energies though. So if they play Armor Rouge with Arcanine EX, we kind of stand a high chance of winning just because we're hitting for the weakness. Not just that, we are also able to target the right Pokemons to lower their HP down to 40 and deny them from doing any damage at all onto our key attackers. If we can stay alive with the same Cloyster, having that Panic Mask attached, even if they do a boss on our Bibarel, we at least get to do extra snipes more times with the same Cloyster, doing Aqua Split on the next turn for the finishing strike. We could also play our Zeraora with the Panic Mask attached for us to do Cross Fist, and then switch around with our Cloyster using the Tower of Waters to play both those attacks at the same time over and over until they run out of their attackers. So it's a pretty fun strategy, not necessarily that powerful in standard right now, just because we have crazy Turbo Miraidon, and we've got Gardevoir. Basically, if they play only Gardevoir with Zacian though, if they don't play Mewtwo V Union, because if they do effects of attacks, Panic Mask doesn't actually guard you against effects of attacks, damage counter placement, special conditions. They can do a lot of things to knock out your Cloyster even with Panic Mask attached. So you have to be aware of that. Panic Mask does not prevent anything but damage done to your Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon with 40 or less HP remaining. If they heal their Pokemon as well, if they play Picnic Basket, Emergency Jelly, they can quite easily still do damage onto your Cloyster and Zera. So Gardevoir is obviously placing damage counters for us, and it's gonna help us with lowering their own HP down to 40. They may not be expecting the Panic Mask as well, so they may be kind of blindly attaching energies as much as they can onto the Zacian just to kill off the Cloyster, because it actually has 160 HP. If we play a Pot Helmet on the Cloyster, I actually forgot to add Pot Helmet into this deck. So Pot Helmet reduces even more damage, done to your Cloyster by your opponent's Pokemon. If your opponent does, for example, only 130 damage onto your Rapid Strike Cloyster, they are actually not able to knock it out just because it has an ability that allows you to take 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks. And here comes our Zeraora. How are we going to play it though? We got Skwovet, so we kind of have to play our cards right. We got to push the Miraidon back to the bench and retreat with the Skwovet. Somehow bench the Zera and play our Raihan at the same time. So we kind of have to play our Nest Dash accordingly. We can't really do the boss because we need to play Raihan. Panic Mask is not going to help anymore because they're down to 1 remaining prize. If we don't do the knockout on this turn, it's over. We have to be able to play Cross Fist right now. So we have 2 more Rapid Strike Energy inside the deck. Sorry, 1 last Rapid Strike Energy. We have 1 in our hand right now. Unfortunately, we can't really attach the Rapid Strike Energy onto the Zera without benching it first. So if we play the Raihan though, we could actually search for the Rapid Strike Energy and retreat using the Beach Court. If they didn't give us a Beach Court, we had the Tower of Waters. We actually discarded the Tower of Waters early game with the Ultra Ball. We should have discarded something else with the Ultra Ball, like an Energy. Never discard your Stadium, just because we only are playing 2 Escape Rope with 1 Tower of Waters for the Switch. We don't really have that many Switch cards for this deck, and we kind of need to play Escape Rope with Zera at the last minute just to knock out the active Pokemon. If they have, for example, 160 HP or 190 HP remaining on their V Pokemon in the active, you can quite easily play an Escape Rope to knock it out on the bench with your Cross Fist. Because 190 damage, you actually get to do 190 onto your opponent's bench Pokemon thanks to Passimian using your Zeraora for the extra bench snipe. Obviously, you have to attack with your Cloyster first before you're allowed to hit the bench with your Zera. Make sure you're aware of that. If you miss 1 turn not attacking, Zeraora is not able to do a bench snipe. You have to be very certain that you got the extra damage on the bench. Before playing your Crossfist, you have to make sure to attack with one of your other Rapid Strike Pokemon before using this special, secret Zeraora's special move. So we got the win against a Miraidon, which is very fun. Got 2 heavy ball from the prize. I think they kind of handed us the win by doing the boss knockout on the Manaphy, but we kind of make a few blunders as well. If we hit the VMAX, as we said, it would have been an easy win, because we could have quite easily just played our, Crossfist to knock out the VMAX on the bench to draw the last remaining 2 prize by doing a VMAX knockout instead of targeting the Miraidon, which is a lot harder. We kind of give ourselves a lot more work than we need to, so don't overcomplicate things. That's the lesson. Anyways, let's go for the next one. Now we are up against a Zoro box. They got Lucario, dual Lucario Zoroark box with Flapple and the regular, stage 1 Pokemon mix. They got Mightyena. They have, what else do they have? I'm not really too sure. They got, Braixen as well, I think. But they're playing Fighting Energy though. If they're playing Fighting Energy, they kind of need Raihan, because Braixen needs 2 colorless. They have the 1 price Lucario from Scarlet and Violet, doing 160 damage, 150 if I'm not mistaken. If one of your fighting Pokemon got knocked out during your opponent's last turn, it has to be a fighting Pokemon though. If your opponent knocks out any one of your other non-fighting Pokemon during their last turn, you're not actually able to hit for the extra damage. They also have the other Lucario from Brilliant Stars, hitting 60 extra damage for each discarded fighting energy with Aura Sphere Volley, and of course Roaring Resolve, allowing them to search their deck for an extra fighting energy every single turn, putting 2 damage counters on their own Lucario for the extra energy attachment. So putting damage counters on themselves is going to cost them, just because we are playing Panic Mask for this deck. We just need a couple snipes on the bench Flapple, or we need to wait for them to transform though, because the minute Zoroark transforms, they actually get to recover all damage counters from the Zoroark. So we should be targeting the Bibarel and Skwovet first with our bench snipe before we have to deal with the Manaphy as well for this game, so it's kind of fun to watch that before actually dealing with the Zoroark. So let's do Aqua Split right now. And we actually attached the Panic Mask, not realizing that we're doing the knockout on the Riolu. I wasn't aware that Riolu has only 60 HP, because if it had 70, it could actually survive the Aqua Split and evolve. If it evolves though, and does the Roaring Resolve, because 130 damage with the Aura Sphere Volley is actually not enough to kill our Cloyster. Since we have the ability that reduces 30 damage done to it, we actually get to survive if they don't attach the extra energy from their deck. So if they attach the extra energy though, they are actually doing 0 damage, because they are placing 2 damage counters on the Lucario for the extra energy, and that means they have 8 damage counters on it after we played our Aqua Split, and they would essentially have 40 HP remaining. 40 HP means Panic Mask is going to actually prevent all damage done by the Lucario on our Cloyster, and that means they would be discarding all energies for 0 damage. That would have been epic, but unfortunately Riolu just straight up died before we actually get to pull off our Panic Mask for the insane damage block, or blocking them from doing any damage with a Rapid Strike box. Surprise, surprise. Who would have thought Panic Mask actually works for a spread deck? I mean, it is supposed to work for a spread deck though, right? I guess you could do a Alolan Eradicate with the Panic Mask. I thought about doing Speed Ups EX. I actually tried with Speed Ups without much success, unfortunately. Nothing but Speed Ups as the attacker, just because Speed Ups is actually not doing enough damage for the knockout, but it has basically a lot of damage potential. If you're hitting for against a V-Star, for example, you're doing 240 damage, basically reducing them down to 40 HP, and that means they can't do any damage, they can't retreat. You got easy knockout on the same Pokemon on the next turn. unless if they do a boss, obviously. If they do a boss, they can kill you. If they do a switch as well, they can basically remove speed up's retreat lock. So there are quite a lot of counters against speed ups. They can quite easily play path to the peak as well to remove your ability. Speed ups is not perfect, but if you play Eradicate with speed ups, I haven't tried that yet. It could actually work. Because you are, dropping their HP down to 10. But the bad thing about Eradicate though is that it needs 3 colorless. How are you going to evolve another stage 1 while also getting enough draw support, at the same time evolve multiple speed ups and also get enough energies onto the Eradicate to attack while attaching the tool card? There's so many things to consider, so many things to do at the same time. You also need to think about playing Misfortune Sister to discard their switch cards. It's just way too many things to juggle. I definitely way prefer doing a spread deck combo using our Panic Mask, just because you are actually able to deny all of your opponent's attackers from doing any damage onto that Pokemon itself. Obviously, you need to attach that tool card onto multiple of your attackers. If you want to guard, for example, your Cloyster on the bench, in addition to the active attacking, your attacking Cloyster, you gotta dig for those tool cards and attach them while attacking at the same time. But we don't really need to worry about getting them too early though. If we attach them too early, obviously they're just gonna knock us out with the tool card attached. If we attach it at the right time, late game, that would be perfect for us to be able to lock them from doing any damage, while also buy us extra few turns for us to finish off the game by knocking out multiple Pokemons in a row, drawing 6 prize for the win. That would be crazy, wouldn't it? Anyways, they just benched the Manaphy, and now you're gonna witness the Toy Catcher Cologne combo. So Radiant Blastoise is a very powerful card. Blastoise gave me the idea of playing Toy Catcher on the Manaphy for us to do Cologne, basically playing any snipe cards that you want. You could even play Greed and VMAX as well. I think that was the first card that I played Blastoise with the minute it got released. So let's see how we can pull it off though. We have Bibarel in the active, so they actually did a boss on our Bibarel on one of our previous turns, and now we're kind of stuck. We haven't actually managed to do the Manaphy knockout yet, but eventually though we would have to, just because we are playing a full-on bench snipe deck. We have no choice but to deal with the Manaphy. So playing 2 Toy Catcher is a lot safer, but eventually I decided to cut down to 1 because we do have that 1 extra boss. We have ways to search for our item cards as well. So if we got the Toy Catcher prize, we got our boss to fall back on. If we have our boss prize, we can search for the Toy Catcher with our Irida or even Arven. We can either search for the Cologne or the Toy Catcher after doing the discard, after sniping the Manaphy with our Pump Shot. That would be the perfect math, because 2 damage counters reduces Manaphy down to 50 HP, and we get to play Toy Catcher to pull it into the active, cancel off his ability while knocking out the Manaphy with Aqua Split. We get to snipe the bench at the same time on the same turn, drawing that single prize and also spreading more damage onto the bench. That's gonna count a lot to the end game, because if you can spread more like bit by bit, even though you're not doing a lot of damage with Cloyster, you are doing a total of 180 damage if you hit for 60 onto the bench V card with Passimian in play. And if they're doing a 1 price deck, we could actually lower their HP even faster. Doing only 30 damage could actually mean we just need 2 or 3 strikes to lower their HP down to 40, preventing all damage done to their Pokemon by using our Panic Mask. If they play a stage 2 1 price deck though, with a lot more HP, like 150 or 170, we kinda need a lot more strikes with Aqua Split, but we also have our Blastoise. Let's not forget that we can do Pump Shot as well, and also Torrential Cannon. Blastoise gets to attack as well using Raihan for the extra energy onto, for 2 water and 1 colorless, we get to do 170 damage to knock out a stage 2 Pokemon with 1 hit using our Radiant Blastoise for at least 1 knockout, and then we actually get to spread damage and then do a multi-price knockout with Cloyster, and also a double knockout with our Zeraora at some point in the game. So Zeraora is going to come in handy for a finishing blow, helping us win the game by securing the last few knockouts. So obviously be very aware that Zeraora only has 210 HP. You are losing 2 prizes for a V knockout if they kill your Zeraora. Do not play it at the wrong time, and that's the reason we only have 1 copy. We're not playing any Penny or Thornton for this deck, so we have to be very careful. If we get stuck with it as our first active, unfortunately we're not able to remove it from play. We don't even have Volo, so we kind of have to stick with it. Which is quite sad, isn't it? But we only have 1 copy, as I keep saying, and 4 of our Shelders with 3 well, only 2 Bidoof, but we have a lot of other basics as well for this deck, so I don't think we would be getting our Zeraora that easily as our first Pokemon in the active spot. I honestly don't think it's that likely, just because we played a lot of games, less than 10, but about 7 or 8 games with this deck. I really want to be posting it fast, just because I want to go for Unite after this. I want to play the new Umbreon coming for Pokemon Unite, so I kind of want to post this early. But this is quite a solid deck though, which I'm quite happy about. So we played about 7 to 8 games and did not for once got Zeraora in the active spot as our first Pokemon to start out the game. So I feel like we should be fine. Based on personal experience, it could be different for different people though, different accounts. But I'm actually pretty happy with the list. It's working pretty well for me and I'm gonna stick to it. We got 3 Raihans and I'm actually kind of loving loving having it showing at the right time. I'm not sure why, but if you play less supporter cards with 3 Raihans, it's gonna kind of show up at just the right moment when you need it. And it's so satisfying when you get the Raihan at the right time. Because we have Rapid Strike Energy as well for us to play Aqua Split, so we don't really need it that early in the game. We honestly just need it for our Cross Fizz. If we can do a surprise Raihan while benching the Zeraora in a single turn, playing our Rapid Strike Energy onto the Zeraora while reattaching a Lightning Energy from the discard pile onto it for us to play Cross Fizz for the extra bench life, that would be perfect because we actually get to do a surprise hit for the final strike, winning the game by doing big damage on the bench using our Passimian for extra 30 by killing a V Pokemon after spreading damage using our Cloyster. So the early spread with our Cloyster is going to set up for our Zeraora to do a big knockout late game, a surprise knockout at that, because they would not be expecting us to do Cross Fizz unless if they know, if they are well versed with Rapid Strike Pokemons, they may be expecting that. So always be prepared for Manaphy. Always be prepared that they could actually revive it as well. With a simple card like Rescue Carry or Clara, they can quite easily just rebench it right after you do the knockout. So it may be smart to remodify to, add a Lost City or a couple copies of it as well for this deck to be stronger against decks that play, Carrier or Clara or even Miriam to revive the Manaphy onto the bench. Like a Gardevoir EX, for example, they could quite easily do a Miriam and draw back the Manaphy to bench it within a single turn. So it's quite difficult for us to win against a Gardevoir if they do that. Anyways, let's get back to the game. So here comes the Toy Catcher, and we're actually gonna pull out the Manaphy. I actually forgot to drag it into the active, so that's the new way we get to play a catcher and boss now. So there are a lot of catchers, no custom catcher or counter catcher or even EX catcher now. We used to have Great Catcher for Sun and Moon, but for now we only have our Toy Catcher and Pokemon Catcher, and Cross Switcher as well for the item substitute as the boss. So doing the Toy Catcher on the Manaphy is like the most satisfying feeling ever, just because you get to play an item and a single copy at that for you to guarantee the Cologne effect and continue to spread damage. Here comes our second Bibarel. Oh, it's our first Bibarel, my bad. I think we got our first one knocked out. This is the second one. I'm not too sure actually. They're giving us a thumbs down. I'm not sure why. So we're just gonna discard the boss here and dig for... I don't think we're gonna search for any Pokemons. We don't really need anything. Oh, we're just gonna bench the Zera right here. We should be playing our Pump Shot this turn and snipe the Flapple, because the Flapple is actually doing a lot of damage. We should be searching for the Panic Mask and attaching it onto... Oh, we need the Cologne though. We had to play Raihan for the Cologne. We should have done Pump Shot on the Flapple and attached the Panic Mask. We have one on the bench Cloyster. We should have it attached onto the active, or at least to the active or onto the Zera. I'm not sure if we could though, because we actually had to play the tool card first before drawing cards with Bibarel, because we actually benched the Zeraora after the draw. So I'm not too sure what happened there. We could have just... because Flapple is a lot more dangerous. They're actually hitting 250 damage. If they do a boss right now, they could actually finish off our Zera on the bench with one colorless. Isn't that crazy? Flapple is insane. Acidic Mucus hitting 50x damage for each of our opponent's Pokemon with abilities on them. So we have Cloyster, 2 copies with abilities. We got 1 Bibarel with Industrious Incisor, Pump Shot, and also Nest Skwovet. So we have essentially 5 Pokemon with abilities, and that's allowing them to hit for 250 damage with, Acidic Mucus Flapple. And it only has 80 HP, and that means it's quite easy to lower them down to 40. If we can get our second Panic Mask, we could actually deny them from doing any damage at all onto 2 of our Pokemons at a time. But oh well, we'll have to just make do, I guess. So they definitely need to play the Roaring Resolve if they want to be knocking out the Cloyster in the active. I'm not sure why they didn't just play Acidic Mucus, because they got more than enough damage to kill off the Cloyster. I guess they wanted to play the Lucario to basically hit more damage if one of their last, fighting Pokemon was knocked out during their opponent's last turn. So if they play the Brilliant Stars Lucario before the Scarlet and Violet one, they actually get to do big damage twice in a row, and then think about playing the Flapple later in the game. They should be doing the Flapple first though. So that's the annoying thing about Lucario. You kind of need a couple recyclers in the deck just for you to, keep on playing Roaring Resolve over and over using a Zoroark box. I don't think it's that powerful even. Like, even with Raihan and Experience Share, you're only hitting a maximum of 240 damage, 250 damage, my bad, because it has 10 base. 250 damage is not even enough to kill up a V-Star. You still need the Choice Belt, and that's only a V-Star. What about a VMAX or a EX? If they play an EX, a stage 1 EX with 260 HP, how are you going to knock it out with a Brilliant Stars Lucario? Lucario is kind of outdated, I would say. It's not strong enough. I'm sorry. We don't have enough cards to charge up for fighting Pokemons. For Giovanni's Charisma, I don't think it's going to work as well because it is only 1 energy. Might as well just play a Raihan. It's almost the same thing. Except maybe Giovanni gives you that extra stall by putting energies from your opponent's active Pokemon back into their hand. It possibly gives you a little bit more of an advantage. If you are playing Giovanni though, you gotta expect your opponent to do the same. They can quite easily counter your Charisma with another Charisma on their next turn. But if you're discarding all of your energies, you don't really need to worry about the counter, do you? They are reattaching from their hand extra energies, but they are not kind of disrupting your Pokemon. So I think I'm just going to end the voiceover right here and leave you guys to focus on the game. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Today we are featuring our Cloyster with Rapid Strike Passimian for the extra damage boost onto their bench V Pokemon, using Aqua Split for a huge spread damage for each Cloyster that we play. We are doing a 1 prize deck, and that means we get to snipe the bench multiple times in a row using 4 Cloyster for up to 180 damage in a single turn. Every single turn we get to spread up to 180 over and over, eventually reducing them down to 40 or less HP remaining, and then playing the Panic Mask onto our final few Cloyster and Zeraora. For us to buy extra turns to do more snipes by preventing all damage done by our opponent's Pokemon with 40 or less HP remaining. So that's all for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you next time. Have a great day and bye from the people. Enjoy life.
this moment. Burning bright in the night sky. Said we could get lost in this moment. Coming alive in the nighttime. Baby, get lost in this moment. Burning bright in the night sky. Said we could get lost in this moment. Coming alive in the nighttime.